Hear me out, hear me out. Let me just get this off my chest. Welcome to Her Diary Out Loud with Danny Royal, where my journey does not define me, but it defies the barriers of caring about what other people think. One real life experience at a time, my story, my way. I mean, it's better out than in, right? So I received a book, and I am going to share it with you all today. And it's so crazy because I know I've been talking about being rich people stuff, and being rich people stuff is a thing, okay? It is a thing, but there are several things that we must address in order to know that we are rich people stuff. If you don't know what rich people stuff is, I urge you to go back to the first video or the first episode of our podcast series, I'm Rich People Stuff. I share with you all what I'm Rich People Stuff means, what it's about, where it's come from. And I just kind of give you guys a little bit of inside scoop on what it means to me. But I need you to understand, in order to be rich people stuff, you have to address with what's on the inside of you. And sometimes what we do as people, we like to surface level address things so that we won't, go to the things that are deeply rooted in us that would keep us actually from being our authentic self, or keep us from operating in the richness that God wants us to operate in, or keep us bound by the chains of our past, or the chains of what we've gone through, or all these things. And truth be told is that this specific thing that I'm speaking of in this moment is something that many people have experienced in their lifetime. It doesn't matter how old you are. Well, it does, because when you're a child, I don't really think that they focus on this specific thing so much. They could do whatever and it just be whatever and keep it moving. But we as adults and teenagers and, children with understanding, we tend to carry this. We carry this for different reasons, one way or another. And that specific thing that I'm speaking of is shame. And I myself can attest to experiencing shame on several accounts in my life at different phases and stages of my life. I didn't ask for it, didn't want to go through it, but I know I can recall me experiencing shame. Shame is something that can hold you hostage and be a deadly killer silently, honestly, because you could be operating in shame and never telling anybody what's going on with you, and that be the thing that literally takes you out of here, whether spiritually or physically. I know that for me, shame has been a huge part of my journey. I want to say that my shame started off when I was a young person. And I think the biggest seed that was planted of shame was me having my first son. And that's because I was a church girl, and I had this understanding that church girls really didn't, not even church girls, but church folk were like these perfect people. And truth be told, church folk they were not these perfect people. They had flaws beyond flaws on top of flaws. I don't care how long your skirt was. I don't care how plain your nails was, or how much you didn't wear red lipstick, how much you didn't go to the movies, how much covered up you were. Honey, they had more tea than a little bit. And that was one of the biggest moments that I can experience shame in. Not even necessarily because people shamed me. I think I shamed myself before anybody else can get to me, or could get to shaming me at all. It was the idea of knowing that I could possibly be talked about behind closed doors when nobody was around, and me battling the unforgiveness of myself because I didn't do these things or do this the right way. I was young. I was young and dumb. I had an experience and an encounter that I thought was authentic, which led me to having my son, and it wasn't. There were several things that led to my shame. From the person that I chose to have a child with to the act within itself of giving birth to a child who didn't ask to be here, but I couldn't get past myself because I couldn't get past my flesh. And so in that moment, I didn't see myself as rich people stuff, because if I valued myself the way that I should have, that would have never happened. And then I had to get to the root of that. Why didn't I see myself as that? I had to get to the root of that from childhood. What was unaddressed? To be honest, that wasn't addressed until about a year ago or two. So I was walking around carrying baggage, thinking that I was healed, but really it was surface level healing. It was surface level stuff. It was not the actual I'm free and oh, free indeed. He who the Son sets free is free indeed. It wasn't that. I thought I was, and the enemy will have you thinking that you are free, walking around bound whole time in chains. Knowing God and all these things, and not really knowing God's love in the way that I should know it, although I knew him. Because when you truly know God's love, you truly know how to respond to it. And you also know how to respond to yourself, because you value yourself in a way where you see yourself as rich people stuff. Because now you're not looking at yourself from based off of what you've gone through. You are now looking at yourself based off of how God sees you. Shame will have you thinking that you're not what God says that you are. Shame will have you not rising to the occasion. Shame will have you not walking in your authority. Shame will have you at the lowest place you could be if you allow it. Shame is a silent assassin. And if you know anything about an assassin, 9 times out of 10, you don't know the person who is assassinating that person. The damage has already been done before you can even figure out who, what, where, when, and how, and why. And so in light of that, once you find out, 9 times out of 10, there's nothing you can do. And sometimes the damage is done on levels unheard of. But the moment you become aware of shame, you have the right, you have the authority to speak to that thing, speak against it, speak what you are, speak life into yourself and your situation. And sometimes you can't do that by yourself, and that's okay. Maybe you are a person who's experienced shame. I would like to introduce to you a book that was given to me during Vindication Conference. Pardon me, it was upside down. This book is called Shame, the Silent Assassin. Maybe you need help. Maybe you need to get through shame. Maybe you're not in the beginning of your shame, but maybe you're in the middle of your shame. Maybe you're at the end of your shame. I don't know, wherever you are. This book is highly necessary. Why? Because it literally addresses every aspect of shame and what it intends to do, and how it intends to uproot who you are and what it is that you're doing and how you move in your everyday life. This book is called The Silent Assassin, Shame, The Silent Assassin by Jonathan Patterson. So if you have not, I need you to go get this. It is not a long read. I just got this book literally like maybe about a week or two ago. And I'm at the beginning of it. But I said, Lord, this is so timely because this time last year, for those who don't know, I ended up getting ordained at my church. And I'm so blessed to have been able to do so. Because last year, I saw people, my colleagues, getting ordained over me. But it wasn't that they weren't in position. I wasn't in position. And so that led me to a situation where I had become distracted. And in me being distracted, I ended up pregnant because I was out having my fun. And I didn't do it God's way. I was doing it my way. And in light of that, babies are a blessing. Relationships are beautiful, especially when they're in God's order. And I was out of God's order. I got distracted. I wasn't doing what I needed to do. So this time, when Vindication Conference came, and the time, effort, and energy that I put into making sure that I was on my best, not my best behavior, but on my best know-how, my best self, putting things aside and being obedient to the voice of God, that led me to where I am today. That led me to my podcast. That led me to my new space. That led me to giving birth to a beautiful baby boy. That led me to financial flow. That led me to so many different things. But I had to release shame because while everybody was getting ordained, I had to sit on the sidelines. I had to be okay with what it is that I had caused myself. Nobody else did that. I couldn't even blame the person that I was with. I couldn't even talk to the person that I was with because they didn't understand the mandate that God had put on me and in me. And so much so that I was mocked to a certain degree. And I had to be okay with that because that's what I chose. And knowing who that person was to me, what they believed, and where we stood, where I stood with them. And I had to be okay with it. I had to be okay with it. So here's to releasing shame. Don't allow shame to overtake you. It is a deadly killer, but a silent killer as well. It'll kill your joy. It'll kill your peace. It'll kill your strength. It'll kill your authority. It'll kill your authenticity. And that's something that I speak on big. Because how can you authentically operate in the way that you should operate if you're holding on to things that don't belong to you? That shame, it does not belong to you. That was yes, you went through a moment of something that didn't serve you well. And maybe that moment felt long. But I can assure you that there was something that God wanted you to get out of that moment, even in shame, so that you could understand how somebody else felt from that same side. Because guess what? Somebody did not have the capacity to get through it the way that you did. Somebody would have folded back there, but you didn't. And so we've addressed several things. We've addressed being grateful. We've addressed, using what you got to get what you want. We've addressed, several things. I can't even name them all, but I can assure you all of them were necessary for your growth. And today I want to touch on shame because it's something that must be talked about and must be shed light on because it must be released. It can't come with you where you're going. And yes, you are going somewhere. And if you will, I would like for you to go with me. But if not, guess what? I I might not be able to stay back there, but God is able to meet you wherever you are. Just allow him to do so. And maybe you don't believe in God. That's fine. Whenever you're ready, he's there, waiting with open arms to say, hey, lay aside every weight that so easily beset you. What freed me was the fact that God said that I was redeemed. And when he said that I was redeemed, he didn't just say that I was redeemed. He redeemed the time, as if I never lost. And that was the beauty of my journey. Having my son, not being married, being in a broken relationship, going through class, seeing my colleagues supersede where we all were at one point. But I was a product of being distracted, and I was a product of allowing somebody in at the wrong time. Because my pride of saying, oh my goodness, I want to feel this way over feeling this way, because I didn't understand what God was doing. I didn't understand what God was doing. And I didn't care to understand in that moment. I just wanted to be happy. And my happiness got me. It got me good. And I was happy for a little while until I wasn't happy no more. And then I was resenting the person that I said that I loved, or the person that said that they loved me. Because where are they now? They're not around. And at the time, I didn't get ordained. I was left with a baby. There were several things that just made me feel like, this hurts. But God had to show me what I was idolizing. And I was the cause of my own shame. And you may not be the cause of your own shame, but you could be the cause as to why your shame lingers. Don't allow it to stay. Let it go. So if you have not, what I want you to do is go on over to Podbean. Go check out our latest episode, which also happens to be the 5th episode. You will get something out of that podcast. Just like maybe you got something out of this recap. I tell a few other stories about moments of shame because I've had several. Let me tell you. Today, I want you to go, grow, and glow. I want you to release shame, walk in your power, step into your authenticity, step into what God has in store for you. Understand that you are amazing, and your birthright is freedom. Become a slave to being free. That means letting go of those things that so easily beset you. How do you do that? Give it over to God. Maybe you're not ready for that. Guess what? Whenever you're ready, he's going to be ready, waiting for you. I can assure you that. On that note, remember, you're not just mentally fit, physically fit, or spiritually fit, but you are feminine and fit. Bye.